Anybody back? No. Who am I missing?
What number are we on?
Number
We're
5.
almost done, and then we
This
have
is the
6.
penultimate one. We're last.
You always end up getting the last straw, don't you? Wow. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, maybe whatever.
Are we waiting?
Are we missing?
Well, yeah, because they're gonna have to
Everybody's
walk
here.
in front of the camera. Everybody's here.
Everybody's here.
Okay.
All right. Well, Dr. Rain, it's very nice to meet with you today. Thanks
you.
for asking us to come and talk with you. My name's Kyle. We've worked together before.
Yes.
And
I believe
Catherine, we've
you
worked
have-
together as well.
Yes.
Yes. And just a little bit about us. We've worked together through the writing lab for multiple years now. And then I'm also working with Cogent Company now, and Catherine.
And we've also worked together with the Writing Center, setting that up at Discovery Park for the engineering students, for the graduate students. And so somehow we both ended up with jobs at Cogent, and now we'd like to talk to you about our services and what we can provide for you.
Okay.
Yes. So we're obviously both deeply invested in the writing lab, and we know that as the director you are as well. And you've mentioned to us some of the problems that you've had in the past, and so we just wanted to meet with you today to kind of figure out if possibly Cogent could help you in solving some of those problems. So we're going to talk about analytics today. It can be kind of a scary word, but trust me, we're not going to get too
Did you know I'm not good
technical.
with numbers?
I have nothing to say.
That's fine, because we are.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I'm going to take notes
That's fine.
so that we can kind of take this back and discuss it with the team later.
Okay.
But I think Catherine is going to start us off. No, she's not.
No, I can definitely start us off. Okay, so so tell us about yourself and how you got involved with the Writing Center.
I inherited it through no fault of my own.
Okay.
I was, TechCom was still in the English department, and I was directing the composition program,
Okay.
and the writing lab was being directed by, well, in theory, it was being directed by another English department faculty member, but in truth, it was actually being run by his assistant. His assistant didn't even have an undergraduate degree in English, let alone any kind of a graduate degree. They had about 4 tutors, and it was sort of just a little clubhouse. Well, he was asked to retire, and they came to me and said, guess what, we need somebody to direct the writing lab. It opens in 2 weeks. I said, oh, okay. So I got 2 weeks to go in and figure out what they had been doing or not doing
Okay.
in most cases, and find a way to get the doors open.
Okay. So how long ago was that?
It's been about 7 years.
So it's been okay then?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
But would you say that in that time that everything was kind of thrown together a little haphazardly?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Haphazard pretty much define the previous directors.
Complacent would define the previous director. If
Okay.
they had 2 or 3 students a day, that was just fine. They were
Oh, wow.
perfectly happy.
So that's far less than the volume
Oh.
you're dealing with now.
Yes.
And as you took over the writing lab, would you say that, you know, it kept you up at night?
Yeah, it did a fair amount of time.
Because there were a lot of problems that you had to face, and
Yes.
how did you go about kind of trying to fix those problems? What was your first issue that you wanted to tackle?
The first issue was that the tutors that I inherited from the previous owner were up in arms because I wanted to bring computers into the writing lab. Yeah, that was a bad thing apparently. They all ended up quitting. So I had to figure out how to hire new tutors and what those tutors should be and what they should be able to do, and then train them. So that was the first, personnel was the first big thing.
Okay. And going to now, what are the things that keep you up at night or make you worry about the Writing Center and its success?
Probably the same problems we've always had, just on a larger scale. It's really important that we have good records because our budget is dependent on my ability to be able to show via hard data, this is how many students we're tutoring, so this is how much money you need to give me to keep the lab running.
Absolutely.
Which is not as easy as you would think. I mean, we have a card system, they sign in, and it automatically creates a database, but it gives us very limited information about who those students actually are. So I can roughly say that 20% of our students are in Comp 1 and 20% of our students are in Comp 2, and then that leaves us with usually 60% of students in other UNT classes, which,
Various classes.
yes, which
Okay.
doesn't help at all.
Right.
So I don't know enough about the students using the lab, which means it's always guesswork on, are we providing what they need? Or do the tutors know what the students need them to know?
So in summary, what I'm kind of getting is that since you've taken things over, you've done your best to move things in a positive direction, to start collecting data in areas like very broadly just to keep the lab afloat and to justify its existence. But we don't have enough currently in place to say we have this specific need and you should give us money to do it.
Correct.
Okay, so let's put that on hold for a second. We'll come back to the lab specific issues. I want to show you something right now. I used to lose a lot of sleep, and I have proof of that. Here is an app that I use, and since I've started using it, I've started sleeping better. It has actually solved the problem for me. So, if you look at this graph, this is a good graph. And what this graph shows me is that I slept very well that night. This was a night where I had a 98% sleep quality as compared to all of the other nights that I've used this app. And the way it works is I just turn the app on, I set it next to my pillow, and it records my movements as I sleep. So when you're in different phases of sleep, you move differently and it judges your activity. So this night I got almost 9 hours of sleep, which is awesome. I was on a computer screen pretty late before I went to bed. When I woke up, my heart rate was 60 beats per minute. So this was a good night. Moving forward, the next night, there's a different graph.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this is 67% sleep quality. I only got 5.5 hours of sleep that night.
And what was the difference
The difference?
between the first night and the second? Why didn't you sleep well?
Well, one thing is, you see the time difference there, between 9 hours and 5.5. The first night I went to bed at 12:30 a.m. Second night I went to bed at 1:09 a.m. So it wasn't necessarily the time that I was going to sleep, it was the time I had to wake up in the morning. And I will tell you that the first night was a Tuesday, and on Wednesday I have this class, so I don't have work. So I get to sleep in. The next day I have work, so I was up at 7 a.m. And then past that, we have an interesting phenomenon where I slept really well, and you can see that. 86% sleep quality, pretty good. Almost 8 hours in bed. And part of the reason is I drank alcohol that night. So everything else is saying this was a similar night to some other nights, but when I go to sleep, I get to put basically my KPIs in there, my key performance indicators. So things like, was I on the screen late? Did I eat late? Did I work out that day? Did I drink alcohol? Did I drink coffee? This night, I did drink alcohol. I fell right to sleep. And then I stayed asleep.
So if I get the students in the lab alcohol, they'll have a better experience while they're there.
They might sleep better. So this is just an example of personal data collection.
Okay, and that relates to the lab, how?
It relates to the lab because you can see that by Kyle being able to identify these things that make him sleep better or his quality of sleep throughout the night, he's able to make better decisions going forward. So he knows if he's, he's going to have class on Thursday, but he, sleeps really well if he drinks, maybe he should drink on Wednesday nights after class, which would not maybe be a responsible decision.
This is
You
not
can take the
something
data.
that I'm saying.
Right, but the data proves that he
Data
could, and
speaks
it
for
may work
itself.
out better. So for Kyle's bottom line, the way he sleeps may not directly affect his financial situation, but it does definitely affect his performance. And so companies have started to use this information. For instance, sports teams like the Vancouver Canucks and also the Dallas Mavericks have started taking sleep data for their players, because if their players are going to have a better night's sleep and they can improve their reaction time by 10%, and all of them are performing 10% better than they were, then that clearly is going to help them going forward to possibly be able to win.
How does that translate to points on the scoreboard? How does that translate to ticket sales? How does that translate to the overall franchise?
Sure, and they can even do things like they take this information, and by determining the player's sleep habits and if they're performing much worse after they've had a night on the road, for instance, and these teams gather all this information, they can then go to the organizing body potentially and say, it's not a fair match whenever we're traveling and between the visitor team and the home team, and it's very clear, maybe we can adjust the schedule. So it even goes that far that they're able to take this information. And so if clearly whenever teams win, they bring in money, they bring in tens of millions of dollars into the economy, and so that affects not just the team, but all of everybody around it, which directly relates to you. Because if you can take the information, look at the analytics, figure out the performance of your students and the performance of your lab, and your lab starts to do better, not only does that bring more money into you because more students are visiting you, but it also shows that what you're doing is working and helps the university as a whole. So that is kind of how analytics goes from the small scale to the big scale and then can work for you.
So you can help figure out why some students keep coming back to the lab and why some students don't?
That is a big question, and that's something that we want to look into more. And part of being able to examine that problem, which, on the surface level is a fairly simple problem. Why do some people come here and why do some people not? Obviously, all the people that come there need help on their writing. That's what they say. But we know that there are a lot of people not coming who need help on their writing. So why aren't they coming in? We need more detailed information. One thing that really helps is when we know if a teacher recommended them. So are they just coming in for the 5 bonus points? Or are they coming in because they didn't know about it and a teacher mentioning it in class actually drove them to the location? We need more information. So the more things that I put into my app to basically give me indicators of what's going on when I go to sleep and how that's affecting me, the better informed decisions I can make.
So how are you going to get that information from the students?
Well, we have some ideas, but really we need to know what your concerns are first. So if it's just bringing students in, that's a broad problem.
Well, I need to have some way of gauging how effective they feel like their time spent was. Was this 30 minutes useful? Was it okay? Yeah, it was great.
So what if they say this was a waste of time, but
I
then
need to
it
know
really
what-
improves the quality of their writing? Sometimes learning isn't always the most fun activity, but it has the benefits.
Which is why you can't just use a survey in the writing lab.
Right.
Because
Right.
I don't care what their opinion is. I need to know, did it work?
Exactly, and this is where we're getting into analytics, because we have to cross-tabulate what's their opinion, what's their actual grade, how long did they spend, how effective was the tutor. There's so many variables involved that you can't look at one thing and say, oh, well, when we have tutors that have received this type of training, they are better and students come to the lab more. that's not the kind of assumption that we can make anymore.
And you can't just throw out their opinion either, because if they just don't like
Right.
us, they're not gonna come back.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, and that's where we can develop a formal data strategy to where we determine that this is your specific need. You can come up with one problem, several problems, whatever those may be. Then we go in and find the information, the data that you already have that we can leverage to find the answers to these problems. And if you have specific questions or specific problems that need additional data resources, then those are some things that we can provide and work through. And we can build in the analytics, like into your existing infrastructure. We can build embedded analytics into those so that you don't have to change your business practice. You don't have to add a whole bunch of work to yourself because you're a busy person. And so then we would take that on for you. And then from that point, we determine how that information is going to be delivered to you. And also how we can deliver these methods to determine success through the student. And we can look at different things like students that are coming in, are they coming in the middle of the semester? Are they already struggling? What is their grade when they come in versus their grade whenever they finish? And start developing those success stories, which is always helpful. The main thing is to determine exactly what you need, and then we can go in and figure out how to get the information so you can make the best informed decision you can for the writing lab.
And large businesses are already using this. A report came out by the Aberdeen Group that said businesses that have leaders who are really promoting analytics are going above and beyond everybody else, and they're kind of kicking everyone else's butts. And then there's the people who haven't yet started or are struggling with their analytic infrastructure. We work with a number of companies on doing this exact kind of thing. So we have a number of best practices already in place. So we can immediately take UNT's writing lab and become one of those leading organizations.
So we can overtake Purdue and make them follow us?
Well, definitely.
That's what you want to do.
That's what we're hoping. I mean, and you can find out, like, as much as we can provide the information to you in a way that works for you, maybe the information that's being provided to the students through the website or in the lab isn't exactly what they need, or maybe it's not delivered the best way that works for them. And so it's a matter of going through all of this data, finding, all of this big information, making it answer a very, very simple question, which is, how do we do a better job? How do we become more effective?
And what we also provide for you is the graphs, the charts, so things that you can easily look at it and say, that 30-minute tutoring
In
session.
language I can understand?
Absolutely.
Yes. You wouldn't even need it in language. We could do it visually. Data visualization is one of the things we specialize in. So you could look at, say, a plot of a 30-minute tutoring session and all the different variables that we've entered for that session and say, this was a good session, this one was not. This student, over their 4-year career in college, performed better because they went to the writing lab, and this student performed equally as good. So why is that?
And the data we provide too won't just be driven towards you with words that you understand. We can make it so that you can show your tutors how effective things are. You can take it to your bosses and explain to them through this information. It makes it very simple. And the CEO of Netflix actually is very big on data visualization, and clearly he's the big data guy. And it's been very successful for him. But he says data visualization is key because no matter how important the information is, if you can't understand it or can't explain it, it doesn't mean anything.
So how does this all sound to you?
Like, I really wish it was real.
Yeah? Well, I think we've taken up enough time. I think we've gotten some really valuable information out of this. What Catherine and I would like to do is actually go back, talk with our team, and see what kind of recommendations we could come up with for developing the Writing Lab's infrastructure. And then we'll give you a call, or you can call us, and we will set up another meeting so that you know what we're thinking about.
Absolutely. We just want to research it and come back with more information that's solid that can actually show you what Cogent can do for you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.